A reading from the book of Genesis. Joseph could no longer control himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, "Send everyone away from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dismayed were they at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. He said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and Lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your Joseph, God has made Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children and your children's children, as well as your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you there, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty. And now your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my own mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father how greatly I am honored in Egypt and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here." Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, while Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. And after that his brothers talked with him. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
First, Joseph clears the room. Whatever is about to happen, he does not want an audience for it. "Send everyone out," Joseph says, "every servant, every attendant, every Egyptian official." And then, alone with the 10 men who have come from Canaan to buy grain, Joseph falls apart. He weeps, and not quietly. The text says he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him through the walls, out in the corridor, all the way to Pharaoh's house. And through his sobbing, Joseph says 4 words that these men have spent 20 years never expecting to hear. "I am your brother. I am Joseph." And here's the part the Sunday school version usually skips. The brothers are not glad to see him. They don't run forward to him. The text is very precise about what they do, which is absolutely nothing. They cannot say a word. His brothers could not answer him, the text says, for they were terrified at his presence. Terrified because, in case you have forgotten, the last time that they saw this man, he was 17 years old and was standing at the bottom of a pit, and they were arguing about whether to kill him or just to sell him. Now he stands in front of them as the second most powerful man in Egypt, holding their food, their future, their father's life, and their own, and he has just told them who he is. Put yourself in that room, not as Joseph, but as one of the brothers, because I rather suspect that most of us have in some way been in that room, on one side of it or the other. Sooner or later, the person who hurt you badly is going to be standing right in front of you, or you are going to be the person standing in front of someone that you hurt, and something is going to be needed, something that only one of you can give, and you must decide who you are going to be, probably before you feel ready to, before forgiveness is something you really feel, before the wound has healed. Don't we keep waiting to feel forgiving before we act? And it almost never seems to come in that order. The deciding comes first. The feeling, if it comes at all, comes limping along behind. So watch what Joseph decides. We know the famous line, of course. I can still hear Bill Griffin, my Old Testament professor, bellowing out in front of the class in his North Carolina accent, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." Most everyone knows the line. It might as well be needle-pointed on pillows. But notice, that line isn't even in today's reading. It comes later, chapters later, after their father Jacob has died, and the brothers panic all over again, certain that now, finally, this time, Joseph is going to take his revenge. That's the tidy, retrospective version. What we get today is earlier than that. And notice what Joseph does not do here. He does not weigh their crime. He does not make them apologize first. He does not make them earn it. He doesn't even say, "It's all right," because clearly it's not all right. And God bless him, Joseph never once pretends that it was. Listen to how he names them. "I am your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." Whom you sold. He says it right to their faces. The selling stays named. He does not unhappen it. But he does instead something far better. He makes himself known. That is the actual verb in the Hebrew. A single word that means to cause yourself to be known, to disclose who you are. And that is the whole hinge of this scene. We walk into these moments expecting forgiveness to be a verdict, something that gets handed down about what was done to us, guilty or not guilty, pardoned or not pardoned. But Joseph doesn't do that. Joseph does not render the verdict. He simply replaces it. He replaces the verdict with a person. He says one word about what any of it, before he says one word about what any of it meant, before there is a single sentence of theology, Joseph tells them who he is, and he acts out of it. The question in that room stops being, "What did you do to me?" and becomes, "You know who I am. I am your brother." The verdict never arrives. Instead of a verdict, we get a brother. And then, and only then, comes the God part. And we do have to be careful with it. "It was not you who sent me here," Joseph says, "but God, to preserve life." Now that is not Joseph explaining the evil away. Hear it in context. In the very same breath, he is still calling it what it was. He has just said whom they sold. He's not telling them the harm was secretly good all along. What he's doing, and the Hebrew is almost tender here, he is releasing them. "Do not be grieved," he says. "Do not be angry with yourselves." He's saying, in effect, I will not let the worst thing that you ever did be the last word about who we are to each other. How both of those things are true at the same time. A real of evil done by real people, and a God who somehow works life through it without ever once making it good. Joseph doesn't explain it. And I'm not going to explain it either. Because in all honesty, I'm not even sure I can. There are some things that you just hold. You don't solve them. They can't be solved. I've done my job only if I have handed it to you whole. So back to you and to the person who is going to be standing in front of you one of these days. Don't think that what I'm offering here is a technique. I want to be careful because it would be so easy to turn all this into some sort of an assignment. Just be like Joseph, forgive the people who hurt you. But that's not the gospel. That's just one more thing for us to fail at. Look at how Joseph actually does it. He does it while he is completely undone, sobbing through a wall, sobbing so loudly he can be heard down the street. He does not decide who he's going to be from some calm and forgiving height. It comes heaving up out of him, out of grief, out of being broken wide open in a room that he had to empty first because he knew he wasn't going to be able to keep it together. I rather suspect that that is really the only way it ever comes, from the place where you simply cannot pretend anymore. So no, you should do nothing. Nobody should do anything here. There is no should in this. There is only this held up in front of us this morning so that we can see it. A man weeping, deciding in front of the people who wronged him not to render the verdict that he has every right to render. A man weeping, deciding to tell them instead only who he was. When your moment comes, and it will come, the question will not be whether they've earned it. The question will be who you are. And that, thank God, is still yours to decide. Until next time, here is a poem by Yehuda Amichai, A Man in His Life.
A Man in His Life, written by Yehuda Amichai and read by Kate Moose.
A man doesn't have time in his life to have time for everything. He doesn't have seasons enough to have a season for every purpose. Ecclesiastes was wrong about that. A man needs to love and to hate at the same moment, to laugh and cry with the same eyes, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them, to make love in war and war in love, and to hate and forgive and remember and forget, to arrange and confuse, to eat and to digest what history takes years and years to do. A man doesn't have time. When he loses, he seeks. When he finds, he forgets. When he forgets, he loves. When he loves, he begins to forget. And his soul is seasoned. His soul is very professional. Only his body remains forever an amateur. It tries and it misses, gets muddled, doesn't learn a thing, drunk and blind in its pleasures and its pains. He will die as figs die, in autumn, shriveled and full of himself and sweet. The leaves growing dry on the ground, the bare branches pointing to the place where there's time for everything.